Blog Talk Radio.
Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroads where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future. Shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition. Not exactly remarkable, ongoing reality.
Welcome to Transition Radio.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Mark Angelo Cummings, and I am your host.
And I'm Leonard Lopez, and I'll be your hostess.
We're broadcasting live from the beautiful land of enchantment, Silver City, New Mexico, and it's Friday. Today is relationship and spirituality, and we've got a few great articles to discuss tonight. At any time, if you guys want to call in at 646-716-6895, you're more than welcome to talk or speak.
We wanted to thank our sponsors at thebreastwarmstore.com. They have everything you can imagine to enhance your feminizing needs.
As well as Spunk Lube, the amazing glycerin-free, 100% sex toy safe with all materials. And it's fun to use. Check them out at
spunklube.com.
And enter the code TR and you will receive a 10% discount. Hey guys, I am an uncle.
Yay, congratulations.
My younger brother, Steve, and his wonderful wife, Carmen, just gave birth today to a beautiful baby boy. I was predicting on the 5th, but it was pretty close, 5 pounds and 12 ounces or something near that nature.
18 inches.
18 inches, I'm sorry.
No, 18 inches long.
18 inches long and 5 pounds, yes.
Yeah.
Longy. Okay, but first grandkid of the entire family, and needless to say, my parents are just besides themselves, as are all of us in the family. Anyway, guys, today we wanted to talk a little bit about God. Is God dead? It's Easter weekend, and, you know, there's a lot of different definitions of who God is, what God is. Is it a he, a she both? You know, is it some sort of mysterious force in the sky, or is it this man and his long beard and gown that sits on the throne pointing at us saying how bad we are? So we found this article that we thought you'd find interesting. That's what the bumper sticker declared on the back of the 1970s, is God dead? With colorful paint in the back of a VW van. I'm not sure which was holding the hippie van together, the duct tape or the bumper sticker. Maybe they both were.
But I got to thinking, our ideas about God are sometimes just as old and held together just as tenuously. God, as I was raised, brainwashed, or conditioned to think of him, I prefer her, just to remind me to stop thinking of him as a him when he's actually neither a him nor a her. It is this God who may be dead. It is this God who may not have ever really existed.
And that brings, you know, a big question in my mind. It's like, did, you know how they say God created us in his image, or did we actually create God in our image? You know, I've always been my question. Anyway, you'll have to decide that for yourself. However, I can only tell you where I'm today, and where I am today is miles from where I was even 10 years ago.
If it isn't too threatening to you, I'd like to get you to thinking too. God is dead. The one I was taught to believe in, that is. He's died slowly, however, and over a long period of time. Oh, occasionally I still try to keep him alive on a kind of religious life support, comprised mostly of my little beliefs I self-inject into my soul to comfort the pain of letting him die, much like a nurse might administer morphine to a patient in pain.
Here's the God I was taught to believe in. Some of you will recognize this description of him. Just don't confuse the description with the deity herself, which may be our biggest error.
This God lives in the sky, somewhere, even in the heavens, wherever that may be. perhaps somewhere among the stars. It was much easier to think about this when I was a child. Then I went to school one day and learned our nearest star is something like 8 or 9 light years away. That is, the little light I saw at night when I was just 8 actually emanated from its source before I was born.
Not a very comforting thought to an 8-year-old looking for God in the heavens at night. So where is this God, and what does he look like, and what am I to think about him?
Is he as angry as the preachers I see on TV and hear on the radio? Is he as pissed off as I was when I was a preacher, angry at sin, equally angry at sinners, ready to hurl a lightning bolt or two or a tsunami at any moment against those not like us, quote unquote, particularly the gays and lesbians and transgenders? Oh, and the Muslims too?
Know this God. Ever heard of him? I'm pretty sure you have. Is this God dead? Is this God dead? Not hardly. He's very much alive in the thinking, the believing of religious people today, whether Christian or Muslims or whatever. He's still alive from time to time in my own thinking. It's true. Whoever said it, God loves those I love. And at my worst, he probably hates those I hate too.
I know better than this, however. In my better moments, I just don't have enough of them. I was raised to believe in a God who is superhuman but human-like, the big super-duper guy in the sky. Isn't it true that this kind of God comes to your mind even when the name of God is mentioned?
Honestly, for me, I have this image of aged male in white robe, long beard, sitting in a high back chair similar to a throne, and the throne is floating around on a cloud somewhere just about the clouds or maybe on the clouds.
This God is a miracle worker, just like Cecil B. DeMille depicted in the Ten Commandments, starring Charlton Heston as Moses. If I watched that movie once as a young adult, I must have watched it a dozen times. More recently, there have been newer, more dramatic depictions of this God that have been captured on the big screen.
Our God is a powerful God. I was told if Moses carried a big stick, you should see the stick God carries. It is to this kind of God you'll offer up prayers in hopes you offer them correctly, in the right spirit, with the right words, and, of course, with just the right amount of faith to move him to action.
Always on your behalf, too, and why not? So I regularly prayed, "Bless, O Lord," by which I really meant, "Bless me, O Lord." But if I prayed that prayer 100 times, I prayed it maybe several thousand. After all, I am deserving of a blessing.
It is this God I was raised to believe in and many still believe in. It is this God that atheists react against and says, God is dead, or declares never existed.
And they're probably right, but what Christian has the gumption to admit it? Just my opinion, of course. You might disagree, but there's no need to react to any of this or to write me and tell me how wrong I am, how misled I am, and how mistaken I am to mislead others who will end up in hell with me and because of me.
You really believe in hell? Don't get me started. Just add me to your prayers list then, because I could use some prayers. You likely could use the practice. Well, both be mutually benefited. All kidding aside, I wish only to invite you into the thinking about all of this, about the God you were taught to believe in, just as I was.
Just ponder the whole God thing, but give up feeling that God needs you to defend him. I can assure you, if God is the kind of God I was raised to believe in, he is this. There's nobody big enough to threaten him.
It is this big, angry, bully God I no longer believe in. However, the one I used to say in one breath is a God of love, but in the next would say is going to judge the world and consign to hell those who are not real believers like us.
So why are you threatened? Do you not react because there's something in all these questions that rings too painfully true?
Can you let this God die? I know how scary it is to let old ideas of God die. I know how much easier it is to cling to mythical ideas of God, too. I did this for a long time precisely because I had no other way to think about God. And giving up old ideas about God felt too much like I was giving up on God herself. And that was just too frightening to face.
Do you cling to a God deep down you fear has died because you have no living God with which to replace her? Is this why you keep listening to preachers talk about things you know just aren't so? Because it at least means you're not alone in a denial of truth?
But then, aren't you getting tired of pretending to believe things you know are simply not true? Isn't that like administering CPR to a corpse that's been embalmed already?
What if God, the real God, is not this miracle-working, super-duper guy in the sky with all the answers printed in a leather-bound King James version of the Bible? What if instead God is a spontaneous thought of God that just pops into your head from time to time?
What if God is the face you see across the counter at Starbucks?
What if God is the feeling of awe you get when you hear the birds at dawn?
What if God is the gay, the lesbian, or the transgender person across the hall?
What if God is the immigrant that would be easier to fence out than cut path to let in?
What if God is the woman wearing the hijab to work?
What if God is a smile you see on a stranger's face or the pain you see in a starving face?
Wonder what would happen if you were to let go of all the God who was dead and believed instead of a God who is invisibly visible all around you.
I'm just asking. You'll have to work this out on your own, which is what St. Paul meant when he said, work out your own salvation.
Yep, I'm afraid so. No good thing comes cheap. There is little effort involved in spiritual enlightenment. The gift of grace may be free, but the baggage wherein it resides has to be unwrapped.
Just saying, what if, however, what if God is bigger, grander than anything you could define, describe, or draw on a piece of paper or print on a page of inspired scripture?
My own experience has been when you can let go of all your definition of God, you might just discover, as I did, a discovery worth making.
One that'll leave you wondering why you kept returning to a tomb every year looking for a body when the tomb emptied of all evidence 2,000 years ago.
Except, of course, for a few garments called old ways of thinking. Very interesting article and very much the way I feel.
Well, it's very poignant for me because it's one of those telling articles for me because I agree with everything it has to say. And I held on, just like this guy who wrote it, I held on to stuff for a long time. And this may be just kind of like the last parting words to this type of thinking, because that kind of God, I don't want to be alive.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that kind of a God.
I've always believed that God is a God of love, does not judge, does not condemn. I mean, the Bible is full of sacrifices. Women were stoned to death. You know, slavery was a thing that was A-okay, and there is nothing godly, nothing wonderful about religion or the Bible.
Didn't you have like this one Facebook post that you put up where it shows all the acts of violence, all the times there was rape and murder committed and all this, and it was in different letters, and it filled up pretty much almost the whole Bible. It was really quite shocking to see.
And I also put an article today regarding if Jesus were alive today, the Christians would probably reject him because Jesus was a hipster. Jesus would practice love and teach love, no matter if you were a prostitute, a leopard, no matter what you were, he did not turn you away like Christians do.
Yeah, he did stuff that, the Jews disagreed with. Like, a woman couldn't be in the presence of a man if she had her period or something,
yes,
or was going through stuff. So Jesus speaks to this woman who had this problem and this issue, and he did care less about what the Jews thought. And also meeting up with the Samaritans, with the Samaritan woman who was an enemy, unless a woman that was against the tradition of the Jews.
Right.
So
well, he came to break those traditions. He came to free us from this tradition, and what did we do? We killed him because he was a heresy. He was going against what the religious ways.
Yeah, they believed he was a heretic, and he was a blasphemer and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think the true Christians, or the Gnostic Christians, were those that really followed the word of Christ to a T, not the so-called Christians today that are really not following at all the word of Christ.
Well, the word that they needed to follow was God loved people.
Exactly.
Jesus loved people, and he accepted everyone. And that is a message that is sorely lacking in American Christianity today.
Look at this example with this pizzeria place now that they've been forced into hiding because it pissed off the gay community.
Well, they made a pretty strong stance on national television that pretty much they made their stance and their way known that they were not going to be accepting of all people, that they were going to only accept those people that they wanted to accept.
Right, and that's not what Jesus would have done. So they're not being true Christians.
Right, they're not being Christ-like,
exactly.
or whatever.
They're being more of like what the Constantine and the Roman Empire created, and the bigotry and the whole nine.
Well, they're being like Pharisees. You know,
Exactly.
They're coming up with all these rules and regulations that were never even supposed to exist. You know, like a Jew couldn't work on a Saturday, right? But if an animal fell into a ditch, they would call that work, because the person would have to come and get them out of the ditch, and that wasn't really what that law was about. Instead, they made all these different fence laws and added to what they weren't supposed to do.
And there's just a lot of things that have been lost in translation. It means absolutely two different things if you really analyze it. That's why there's a lot of mix-up in the Bible, things that don't make any sense. One breath it says one thing, and another breath it says something else.
Well, the 66 books that were put into the holy, quote-unquote, canon of Scripture are because of the Roman Catholic Church.
Right.
It's not really anything that has any real value other than what these people wanted to put in as the Bible.
So the question is God dead? I believe the old God, the old ways are dying very quickly. I think people are tired of this bigotry that are being shoved down their throats by the different religious sector. Number one, Christianity. You got the Baptists as well that are also very bigoted, and people are tired of that.
A new generation of people, of young people, is not accepting of, the bigoted behavior that, the older generation espouses.
Yeah, people want love. People want the true enlightened spirituality that other practices like Buddhism and Hinduism and just the New Age stuff that is giving people what they want and need, because people want to feel the love of God, not the wrath of God. And I truly believe that the whole wrath stuff is just all made up, to maintain people in fear so they could control us. Now, we want to talk a little bit about relationships. Relationships are not easy. They take a lot of hard work.
I would say.
It's any type of relationship. It doesn't have to be a love type of relationship, relationship between your siblings, your mother, your father, your sibling, everything, everyone. It's hard. It takes work. It's not easy. So
this article here talks about 7 solutions that could save a relationship. And we're just going to start off. It's the rare couple that doesn't run into a few bumps in the road. If you recognize ahead of time, though, what those relationship problems might be, you'll have a much better chance of getting past them.
Even though every relationship has its ups and its downs, successful couples have learned how to manage the bumps and keep their love life going, says marriage and family therapist Mitch Temple, author of The Marriage Turnaround. They hang in there, tackle problems, and learn how to work through the complex issues of everyday life. Many do this by reading self-help books and articles, attending seminars, going to counseling, observing other successful couples, or simply using trial and error.
Relationship problem number 1, communication. All relationship problems stem from poor communication, according to Elaine Fantel Schimberg, author of Blending Families. You can't communicate while you're checking your BlackBerry, watching TV, or flipping through the sports section, she says.
Problem-solving strategies. Make an actual appointment with each other. Schimberg says, if you live together, put the cell phones on vibrate, put the kids to bed, and let voicemail pick up your calls. If you can't communicate without raising your voices, go to a public spot like the library, park, or restaurant where you'd be embarrassed if anyone saw you screaming.
Set up some rules. Try not to interrupt until your partner is through speaking, or ban phrases such as you always or you never. Use body language to show you're listening. Don't doodle, look at your watch, or pick your nails. Nod so the other person knows you're getting the message, and rephrase if you need to. For instance, say, what I hear you saying is that you feel as though you have more chores at home, even though we're both working. If you're right, the other can confirm. If what the other person really meant was, hey, you're a slob and you create more work for me by having to pick up after you, he or she can say that, but in a nicer way.
And that's true, how things are derived, or what's the word I'm looking for, presented can make a major difference. And sometimes that's where the lack of communication is, or the other person's just simply hearing things in their head and they're misinterpreting and putting words into the other person's mouth. Relationship problems, sex, even partners who love each other can be a mismatch sexually. Mary Jo Faye, author of Please Dear, Not Tonight, says the lack of sexual self-awareness and education worsens these problems. But having sex is one of the last things you should give up. Faye says sex, she says, brings us closer together, releases hormones that help our bodies both physically and mentally, and keep the chemistry of a healthy couple healthy.
Problem-solving strategies. Plan, plan, plan. Faye suggests making an appointment, but not necessarily at night when everyone is tired. Maybe during the baby Saturday afternoon nap or a before-work quickie. Ask friends or family to take the kids every other Friday night for a sleepover. When sex is on the calendar, it increases your anticipation, Faye says. Changing things up a bit can make sex more fun, too. She says, why not have sex in the kitchen or by the fire or standing up in the hallway?
Okay, that's kind of a little weird for me, though.
Yeah.
Making an appointment to have sex. All right, let's put it on the calendar. We're going to have sex Friday night. Yeah. Hey, that's tonight. No. Learn what truly turns you and your partner on by each of you coming up with a personal sexy list, suggests California psychotherapist Alison Cohen. Swap the list and use them to create more scenarios and turn you both on. If your sexual relationship problems can't be resolved on your own, Faye recommends consulting a qualified sex therapist to help you both address and resolve your issues.
Problem number 3, money. Money problems can start even before the wedding vows are exchanged. They can stem, for example, from the expenses of a courtship or from the high cost of a wedding. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling recommends that couples who have money woes take a deep breath and have a serious conversation about finances.
And again, that's part of communication. It's like everything out on the table. I mean, me having been born a female, that's my number one thing. Communicate. I'll communicate to death, sometimes a little too much. And I find that not everybody is as much of a communicator, and that kind of creates a little bit of friction. Problem-solving strategies. Be honest about your current financial situation. If things have gone south, continuing the same lifestyle is unrealistic. Don't approach the subject in the heat of a battle. Instead, set aside a time that is convenient and non-threatening for you both.
Acknowledge that one partner may be a saver and one a spender. Understand there are benefits to both and agree to learn from each other's tendencies. Don't hide income or debt. Bring financial documents, including a recent credit report, pay stubs, bank statements, insurance policies, debts, and investments to the table.
Don't blame. Construct a joint budget that includes savings. Decide which person will be responsible for paying for monthly bills. Allow each person to have independence by setting aside money to be spent at his or her discretion. Decide upon a short-term and long-term goals. It's okay to have individual goals, but you should have family goals too.
Talk about caring for your parents as they age and how to appropriately plan for their financial needs if needed. Relationship problem. Struggles over home chores. Most partners work outside the home and often at more than one job, so it's important to fairly divide the labor at home, says Paulette Kaufman-Sherman, author of Dating from the Inside Out.
Problem-solving strategies. Be organized and clear about your respective jobs in the home, Kaufman-Sherman says. Write all the jobs down and agree on who does what. Be fair so no resentment builds. Be open to other solutions, she says. If you both hate housework, and maybe you can spring for a cleaning service. If one of you likes housework, the other partner can do the laundry in the yard. You can be creative and take preference into account, as long as it feels fair to both of you.
Relationship problem number 5, not making your relationship a priority. If you want to keep your love life going, making your relationship a focal point should not end when you say, I do. Relationships lose their luster, so make yours a priority, says Karen Sherman, author of A Marriage Magic, Find It, Keep It, and Make It Last.
Problem-solving strategy. Do the things you used to do when you were first dating. Show appreciation. Compliment each other. Contact each other through the day and show interest in each other. Plan date nights. Schedule time together on the calendar, just as you would any other important event in your life. Respect one another. Say thank you and I appreciate. It lets your partner know that they matter.
Relationship problem Number 6, conflict. Occasional conflict is a part of life, according to New York-based psychologist Susan Silverman. But if you and your partner feel like you're starring in your own nightmare version of the movie Groundhog Day, i.e. the same lousy situation, keep repeating day after day, it's time to break free of this toxic routine. When you make the effort, you can lessen the anger and take a calm look at underlying issues.
Problem-solving strategy number 7. You and your partner can learn to argue in a more civil, helpful manner. Silverman says, make these strategies part of who you are in this relationship. Realize you're not a victim. It is your choice whether you react and how you react. Be honest with yourself. When you're in the midst of an argument, are your comments geared towards resolving the conflict, or are you looking for payback? If your comments are blaming and hurtful, it is best to take a deep breath and change your strategy. Change it up. If you continue to respond in the way that's brought you pain and unhappiness in the past, you can't expect a different result this time. Just one little shift can make a big difference. If you usually jump right in to defend yourself before your partner is finished speaking, hold off for a few moments. You'll be surprised at how such a small shift in tempo can change the whole tone of an argument.
Give a little, get a lot. Apologize when you're wrong. Sure, it's tough, but just try it and watch something wonderful happen. You can't control anyone else's behavior, Silverman says. The only one that you can is you. Relationship problem, trust. Trust is a key part of a relationship. Do you see certain things that cause you not to trust your partner? Or do you have unresolved issues that prevent you from trusting others?
Problem-solving strategy. You and your partner can develop trust in each other by following these easy steps. God says, be consistent.
Be on time.
Do what you say you will do.
Don't lie, not even little white lies to your partner or to others.
Be fair, even in an argument.
Be sensitive to the other's feelings. You can still disagree, but don't discount how your partner is feeling.
Call when you say you will.
Call to say you'll be home late.
Carry your fair share of the workload.
Don't overreact when things go wrong.
Never say things you can't take back.
Don't dig up old wounds.
Respect your partner's boundaries.
Don't be jealous.
Be a good listener.
Even though there are always going to be problems in a relationship, Sherman says you both can do things to minimize marriage problems. If not, avoid them altogether.
First, be realistic. Thinking your mate will meet all your needs and will be able to figure them out without you asking is a Hollywood fantasy. Ask for what you need directly, she says.
Next, use humor. Learn to let things go and enjoy one another more. Finally, be willing to work on your relationship and do truly what needs to be done. Don't think that things would be better with someone else. Unless you address problems, the same lack of skills that get in the way now will still be there and still cause problems, no matter what relationship you're in.
Yeah, and that's very true. You know, a lot of times we carry old baggage from previous relationships, and it's almost like a self-fulfilling fantasy. It starts to happen again and again. There's a lot of ego, you know, that takes place, and people don't take the time to work things out.
Well, I mean, people, you know, they want to close the book on their past, but a lot of times they find it difficult to do that, you know, and when the past is remembered by the other person in the relationship, it becomes difficult for that person to actually let go of that past that they're being reminded of.
Yeah, like I said, relationships are not easy at all. They take a lot of work. It doesn't come magical. You know, in the beginning, everything is hunky-dory, and then life starts to take place, and things happen. There's challenges that kick in.
But the most important thing is that love that you share between the two of you, that should be able to get you through everything and anything that you face.
Definitely. Well, guys, we want to wish you a great weekend and a happy Easter. Stay tuned for Monday, current events and paranormal. It seems like we said that just a while ago. It's like the weeks go flying so quickly. We want to thank all our listeners and chatters and just everyone that takes the time to listen to the show, where you listen to it live or you listen to it on YouTube, on demand. And we really appreciate your support. Guys, if you can't live your truth,
then it's just not worth living.
Good night.
Good night.
Good one.